and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a blind vlogger and, of course, accessibility expert advocating for more inclusion of people with disability through communication and collaboration instead of compliance and shame. Rather than Mr. Maxwell Ivey. Welcome, Mr. Max, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure, I am the blind blogger Maxwell Ivey. I'm a former carnival owner, and I have spent time also brokering used amusement equipment. I've been educating people about accessibility online since 2007, when in order to build my first website, I had to teach myself to code HTML due to the lack of accessibility in the online world. Nowadays, I write, speak, consult, and podcast, and my message, as you so eloquently described it, is about the positive benefits of accessibility and inclusion. And I'm looking forward to sharing how authors and people in the publishing space can benefit from more inclusive websites and content.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Max. Thank you. So today let's talk about inclusive design makes your products, services, and content better for everyone. So beyond compliance, inclusive design is often mistaken for designing for disabilities or mere compliance. How would you refrain it as a core methodology for innovation and market expansion that creates better products for everyone?
Well, to start with, we have to understand that when we improve accessibility on a website, that we also improve the overall user experience. So when we design, we don't want to design without including people with disabilities or design specifically for their separate needs, but we want to take a universal approach that brings in as many people of as many different abilities as possible. And some of the things that we do to improve accessibility have also proved to improve the overall user experience, such as dark mode, which allows people to invert the colors and have white text on a black background instead of the usual black text on white. That's one of those things that helps people with low vision, but it also makes it easier to visit a website on a mobile device. So really focusing on our customers and including people of all abilities, and realizing that some of the things that we start out doing for people with disabilities impact the enjoyment of everyone else that will visit our online platforms. And the more enjoyable time they have visiting our websites, the longer they will spend on those sites, and the more likely they will be to find something that they have to have. And I find that I am more likely to buy a book from a well designed independent author's website directly than I am to buy that same book or try to buy that same book from one of the national or global book selling websites that we're all familiar with as authors.
Interesting, Mr. Max. Interesting. So let's talk about the carb cat effect. This is the classic example of isolation designed for wheelchair user, benefiting parents with strollers, travelers with suitcase, and many more. What lesser known modern day curb cut effect you've seen to a digital or physical products?
Right. Well, one thing is the proliferation of mobile devices and how more and more people are visiting our websites on their phones and tablets. Well, when we create a more minimal website, when we design something that is very targeted, focused on the purpose of our business, and we make it easier for people to navigate that website with, say, a screen reader or screen magnifier or mechanical switch devices, then we make it easier for people on mobile devices to navigate that same website. So when you when you remove items that don't necessarily need to be on your homepage, or when you relocate the most important things, such as the catalog of books available, the methods for contacting you, the process to check out and purchase whatever it is you're offering, whether that's a book, a merchandise, or a service. So when we focus on the most important thing, we build with keyboard navigation first. We take a simple design to our websites and take a minimalist approach to how much information we put on each page of the website. These are things that specifically improve the life of somebody with a disability, but they also make it much more easy for somebody visiting your website on a mobile device. I would say that would be one that's a little less concrete than the idea that you mentioned. I do know that most the dictation functions that have now become part of our everyday lives through Siri, Alexa, and Google. Originally, those were things that were designed for people who needed help to write using dictation, or to overcome having a physical disability, such as somebody who's paraplegic or quadriplegic. But now everybody is using their those wireless devices in their homes and offices to get things done with their voice that they would have done before with their keyboard or their mouse. And of course, as I'm sure you and most people listening to us are aware, it's much easier for me to tell Alexa to put a book in my shopping cart and that I want to buy that book or listen to that book on my Alexa than it is for me to visit the Amazon or Barnes and Noble website and navigate through the whole process. I mean, while it sometimes can be a security issue, my Alexa has my payment information. So as long as I remember my security pin, I can tell Alexa, I can say, hey, order me Tom Clancy's Op Center and download the audiobook, and she can do that sort of stuff. So those are things that originally made the lives of people with disabilities easier. Now everybody's using
Hmm. Everybody do, yes, definitely. So, Mr. Max, how does the principle of the one size fits all one that lead to more adaptable and resilient solutions than a traditional one size fits all approach?
them. Right. Well, a one size fits all approach is something everybody wants. People want an easy option. They want something they can just add to their website and have it make their website more accessible for everybody based on their needs, or they want something that will provide a variety of options and hope that that covers everybody. But the real thing we have to remember is when it comes to designing our websites is when we focus on the people that will eventually visit our website, that will want to buy our books. When we see all of those people and can put ourselves in those places and use that information to advise us on how to continue improving our website, then the one size fits all can be a beginning, but it's not an overall total solution. So I would say a website that tries to serve everybody may be good in the beginning, but a smart business owner over time will realize who is using or could potentially use their products and services, and they will continue to expand the available accessibility options so that more people can have access to their work and as a result access to purchase from them. We many of us, we have websites, we have blogs or podcasts and social media presences, and all of these are creating content. And the more that we can focus on seeing people of all abilities, and in fact, most of us either are disabled or could be temporarily disabled at some point in our lives, or will deal with the challenges of growing old, or will deal with the challenges of having a chronic illness or a traumatic injury. So, really, if you want to take a one size fits all approach, you should take the idea that we are all disabled or will be disabled at some point in our lives. So, I should really go out of my way to include as many people and abilities as I possibly can. And of course, realize that there's a limit to what each of us can do in our own websites based on our time, our money, the resources we have available to us, and the training we may have in the area of accessibility or not have.
Interesting, Mr. Max. Interesting indeed. So, let's talk about the pivot from user to human. How does inclusive design requires a shift in mindset from thinking about a generic user to considering the full spectrum of human diversity, including permanent, temporary, or situational disabilities?
Well, I would say that the more we see ourselves in the people that may be visiting our platforms, the more likely we are to address those different aspects of accessibility or disability we've been talking about. But the main thing is to listen to yourself, listen to people in your community. When you have the opportunity to connect with somebody with a disability, to take that as an opportunity to learn and to really leverage our communication uh, assets, for lack of a better word. I mean, if we create contact forms and social media links and uh, a way for people to, and customer support or technical support uh, options on our websites, every time somebody comes to us with a concern is an opportunity to learn, to get better, and to open ourselves up to a wider audience. It's estimated that 1 in 6 people in the world have a disability, so that's over a billion people globally. That's over 60 million in the US. But when you add in the fact that many people with a disability tend to be loyal consumers of products, services, and content, and many people with disabilities will self advocate for businesses making the effort, the real reach and power of the disability community goes far beyond the numbers. And even the numbers are on the low side because they don't include people with invisible disabilities like autism, dyslexia, ADHD, or PTSD. And they don't include people who are experiencing disability from aging who also will not see themselves as disabled. So the number of people who may need an accommodation in your website, who may value a website that is built to make it easier for screen readers or screen magnifiers, or make it easier for people who have limited motor control. These are the kind of things that when we do them, we open ourselves up to new customers, to larger audiences, and to loyal consumers. And I think that's one thing that's really underestimated because so few people are making a sincere effort at inclusion, regardless of the industry. When we do find businesses that produce products and services we like and deliver them in an accessible manner, we will be very loyal customers. We will help them sustain themselves through good times and bad times. And we will often see accessibility as a value added proposition because so few companies are making the effort. And just think about that. If you want a way to stand out among larger, more established companies, if you want a way to ingratiate yourself with your audience or with new audiences and have them buy directly from you, one of the best ways you can do that is with accessibility because it's estimated less than 5% of the online world is accessible. And it's generally harder for larger, longer established companies to embrace accessibility than it is for the smaller sole proprietors, indie publishers, indie authors. So there's a opportunity here for you to grab a competitive advantage. And for most people, their sites are not so complicated that they can't embrace and implement accessibility pretty quickly and at a minimum of cost or disruption to their online presence.
So, Mr. Max, as a blind blogger, what are your short term and long term goals?
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question?
Yes, as a blind blogger, what are your short term and long term goals?
I'm sorry, one more time, please.
Mr. Max, as a blind blogger, what are your short term and long term goals?
Oh, okay. So the short-term goals are to continue to grow my podcast, to continue my column called Barrier Free Bites for PHP Architect Magazine and expand my writing, to continue to do more public speaking where I share with people why they should care about accessibility and how to implement it. And I especially look forward to more personal and professional travel, both in the U.S. and outside the U.S. And as far as my long-term goals, I really want to build a movement to where we see accessibility not as a checkbox, not as compliance, not as a terrible inconvenience that we have to live with, but something we see as a competitive advantage that we realize that when we improve accessibility, we open ourselves up to meeting many more amazing people, hearing more incredible voices, and most importantly, open ourselves up to many new loyal customers who will help us grow our businesses. So, changing the way the world talks about accessibility and inclusion is my long term goal. And I really believe that we have to focus more on accessibility and its positive benefits. The same goes for inclusion of in person spaces and workplaces. We have to do that more than we spend than the time we spend on regulatory penalties, legal actions, and negative publicity campaigns. Because quite frankly, we haven't managed to get there using the tools that we have used the most over the last 10 or 15 years. And the one thing I've learned about business owners is they are most likely to make change when I can show them a good financial, bottom line, selfish reason for doing so. So, changing the way we talk about and see accessibility is my long term goal to where we see it as an advantage, not as a punishment.
Well, Mr. Max, good luck for that and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Well, I got to be like me because 18 years ago, I realized that I needed to do something because I was no longer a carnival owner. And I did the one thing I could do something about that day. I filed for a domain name for my ride brokering website. I didn't know how I was going to build the website. I didn't know where I'd find the stuff to sell or how I would get paid, but I did that one thing. And so I would say find at least one concrete thing you can do every day. And for those of us who are authors, writers, and other types of creative entrepreneurs, don't wait for the perfect time because there will never be a perfect time, which is the message in my latest song called Don't Wait on Someday. So those would be my most important pieces of advice. And one other thing I like to make sure I share whenever possible is we aren't meant to do these things by ourselves. So one of the best ways you can move forward is to build a community, or as I like to say, when you refuse to ask, you rob the other person of the joy they would have received. So build a community, ask for help, accept help, do at least one small hard thing every day, and start today. I mean, I started 18 years ago with one small step, and over time, I've been down many different parts of this same river, from carnival owner to ride broker to life coach to podcast booker to accessibility expert.
Well, thank you for that advice, Mr. Max. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence you, Johnny?
Right. I recently enjoyed The Happier Writer by Marissa Meyer, which started as a blog and a podcast under the same name. And I highly advise you to read the book as well as checking out her podcast. I had some wonderful advice in there, both the personal self care and maintenance while being a writer, as well as a lot of practical advice for the writing process, the publishing process, the promotion process, building a platform, all of those dozens of things we have to do as a writer between the idea and the time we hold that book in our hands. And if you're lucky enough to be able to get the audiobook, she narrates it herself, and it was just a delight to listen to. So that would be my book, The Happier Writer.
Well, Mr. Max, thank you for that recommended book. So, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and my book 101 review in sixth season as well, comedy 101 in third season, and food 101 in sixth season too, geography 101 love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 of fifth season, science 101, sex 101 fourth season, and trivia 101, law 101, mental health 101, motivation 101, entrepreneurship 101, and Bible verses 101 are my baby podcasts. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Mr. Max, to wrap up this discussion of our discussion for today, for a designer, developer, a product manager listening who wants to start today, what is the one concrete impactful action they can take in their sprint or project to make their work more inclusive?
I would say to make sure they are actually visiting their website that they are building or that they've hired somebody to build. Accessibility Advisor. I would also say to check out the many free tools for running evaluations on your website to see where they are as far as accessibility now. And I would say if you get the opportunity to have a conversation with somebody who has a disability, who is willing to share their personal experiences with what works for them, then definitely take advantage of it.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Max Ivey. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Max. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you want to promote on Book 101?
Right. I would love them to visit my website, The Accessibility Advantage, and check out my podcast by the same name, where I have some wonderful guests that will talk about their experiences with embracing accessibility and overcoming the many challenges, both internal and external, both practical and emotional. And so I do hope they will check that out. And on the website, they will also see posts about my latest articles or any businesses that I'm currently working with to help them improve their accessibility. So the accessibilityadvantage.com. I'd really appreciate it if they would head on over and say hello.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Maxwell Ivey because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this to rise. So, Mr. Max, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been another enjoyable conversation.
Likewise, Mr. Max, likewise. So, more to come, people. See you soon.